What if 2Pac and Biggie weren't just murdered, but sacrificed?
That's the same nobody that shot Tupac. And if nobody shot Tupac, it's the same nobody that shot MLK.
I told you you can't trust these niggas. Now, Puffy done killed Tupac, man.
Katt Williams just went off the rails, and what he's exposing is deeper, darker, and way more dangerous than anyone expected. He's not just naming names. He's lighting matches in a room full of gasoline. He's pointing straight at Diddy, but it's not just about beef. Katt's hinting at secret societies, late-night rituals, and celebrities being silenced when they step out of line. But before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Because what we're about to uncover isn't just entertainment. It's a straight-up bombshell. Before the headlines and viral interviews, Katt Williams and Diddy shared a quiet connection no one paid attention to. But as time passed, that link twisted into tension and finally snapped. They crossed paths often: private parties, closed-door events, rooms where careers were made or destroyed. Katt was rising fast, but he wasn't just showing up. He was watching, and he saw more than he was supposed to. That's when the offers started coming in, the kind of offers most people would kill for. One of them was rumored to be a $50 million deal, a staggering amount tied to endorsements, specials, and an elite circle of power. But according to Katt, there was a catch. He was invited to a specific party. Not just any party, a private, off-the-grid gathering hosted by major industry players. The kind of party where security takes your phone, where rooms go dark behind locked doors, and where the real deals get made quietly. Katt didn't like the vibe. He sensed something was off. Instead of playing along, he did what almost no one in Hollywood ever does. He said no. And in doing so, he walked away from $50 million. Katt's refusal to attend that party wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a rejection of something deeper, something many believe entertainers aren't supposed to walk away from.
Who gonna turn down $50 million? Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. Just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right, because P. Diddy be wanting to party. And you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did. I did. Motherfuckers be gay in Hollywood you never fucking expected. They be having these big ass mansion parties, and the mansion party, the whole mansion is a party, and then it's a separate party in the little rooms. I ain't been famous that goddamn long. I'm excited than a motherfucker to be at the mansion party. You be looking in all the goddamn rooms, and you fuck around and look in the wrong room. Nick, come here. Why you think I speak with such clarity? I'm actually involved in each one of these stories I told you about.
And once he did, the machine turned on him. His career faced sudden roadblocks. He was constantly portrayed as unstable. But Katt never stopped talking. And ever since, he's been trying to warn everyone else what's on the other side. But if you think Katt Williams was just talking crazy, think again. What he said shook the entire industry. Not because it was shocking, but because deep down a lot of people already knew. Katt didn't bring new fear to Hollywood. He just said out loud what others were too afraid to whisper. And if we're really going to talk about how deep this industry darkness goes, we have to go back. Back to the 2 most painful losses hip-hop has ever seen. 2Pac and Biggie. Starting off with the murder of 2Pac, it was huge news for the entire world.
2Pac Shakur is dead at the age of 25, just about a week after sustaining 4 bullet wounds last Saturday night in Las Vegas.
2Pac and Diddy were on opposite sides of a growing storm. They came from different coasts, but their names kept showing up in the same conversations, especially when things started going wrong. The real link between them wasn't music, it was power, and as 2Pac rose higher, the pressure around him grew heavier. He wasn't just a rapper anymore, he was a voice people listened to. That made him dangerous to the people who wanted to control the narrative.
Like when we had got hit with Hit 'Em Up, I had to make the call to Biggie, and I said, we're not gonna respond. Somebody's gonna get hurt if we respond. Tupac hit us with Hit 'Em Up, and that joint was cold. You know what I'm saying? I was listening to that. You know, we were actually like on people's turntable. A DJ would play that. We would just end the party and just
take that off.
No, we would take the turntable. We would take your turntables. You played Hit 'Em Up.
It all got worse in 1994. 2Pac was invited to a studio in New York, a place known to be connected to Diddy's circle. While there, he was shot multiple times in what many believed was a setup. People said it was a robbery, but the timing and the location raised serious questions. 2Pac survived, but he didn't trust anyone after that. The divide between him and Diddy's camp became personal. As 2Pac recovered, he signed with Death Row Records and got even louder. He released tracks attacking both Biggie and Diddy, making it clear he believed they were part of something bigger. But this wasn't just about rap beef. Behind the scenes, 2Pac was planning a major move. He was getting ready to leave Death Row and start his own label, fully independent. He wanted full ownership of his music, something very few artists had at the time. That move scared people. If 2Pac succeeded, others might follow. That would mean less control for labels, fewer profits for executives, and more artists waking up to how the industry really worked.
2 weeks before we went to Vegas, Pac was on the phone, foaming at his mouth, veins busting out his neck, his head, threatened to blow up Death Row Studio. He was fussing about his music. He wanted his masters.
2Pac was done with Death Row. You know, he had fired Kenner, the lawyer. He was really on his way out.
He had fulfilled his obligation, and that wasn't his plan to be there that long.
No doubt.
He had a plan.
To live and die in L.A.
2Pac had a whole life mapped out, and he was very happy.
Then came Las Vegas. On the night of September 7th, 1996, 2Pac was in Vegas with Death Row CEO Suge Knight. They were there to watch a boxing match. After the fight, 2Pac got into a physical altercation with a man in the hotel lobby. That man, a known gang member, had his own connections. Not just to the streets, but, according to some, to people in the music business. Later that night, while riding in a black BMW with Suge Knight, 2Pac was shot. The car was stopped at a red light when a white Cadillac pulled up beside it. In a flash, gunfire erupted. 2Pac was hit 4 times. Suge was grazed but survived. The car sped off into the night. No one chased it. No one was arrested. 2Pac died 6 days later in the hospital. It happened on a busy street, on a night packed with fans, celebrities, and security. Still, there was no real progress in the investigation. The case went cold almost immediately. That's when the whispers began. Many in the industry started pointing toward a possible setup. Some believed Suge Knight was behind it, trying to keep 2Pac from leaving Death Row. Others suggested it was a gang hit. But one theory kept gaining attention, that someone on the East Coast had paid to have 2Pac silenced. And some said that person was Diddy, but even Suge was scared to say a name.
If you knew who killed 2Pac, would you tell the police?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because it's not my job. I don't get paid to solve homicides. I don't get paid to tell on people.
If you knew, you wouldn't tell them?
No.
Now, once 2Pac left Death Row and went independent, there was no telling what he'd expose. He had dirt on labels, executives, even artists. If he started talking, careers could collapse, deals could fall apart. And in that kind of game, removing one person can protect everything. The most chilling part? A well-known gang figure claimed that Diddy paid a large sum of money to have 2Pac killed. He said it wasn't emotional, it was business. The police never officially linked Diddy to the crime. Maybe it was because of things he said in the past about the police and the system. No charges were filed, but the same names kept coming up in reports, interviews, and investigations. And every time someone got close to the truth, the trail went cold. More recently, when Katt was asked about 2P's murder, he didn't dodge the question. He leaned in and called out how ridiculous the official story has always sounded. He brought up how the police acted like no one shot 2Pac. Like one of the most famous men on the planet just ended up dead in a car in the middle of Vegas, and somehow nobody pulled the trigger. No suspects, no answers, just silence. And yet, that silence always protects the same people, the ones with power, the ones still rising while others drop. Katt didn't stop there. He started listing off name after name, all the artists who were mysteriously taken out after stepping out of line.
Do you have any idea who shot Suge?
pretty sure Suge knows who shot Suge.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
so when he comes out of sedation, I'm sure anybody who gets shot will tell you who shot them, right?
Yeah.
But if the police say nobody shot him, I believe nobody shot him. And if nobody shot him, that's the same nobody that shot Tupac. And if nobody shot Tupac, it's the same nobody that shot MLK. And if nobody shot him, that's the same person that shot Malcolm X too. It's a lot of nobodies out there, and nobody minds if nobody comes up missing, right? That don't bother nobody, does it? Certainly doesn't bother me.
Right after 2 months of 2PAC being killed, the next one was Biggie. It didn't feel like a coincidence. It felt like someone was closing a chapter, removing the loudest voices in rap, one by one. Just 6 months after 2Pac was gunned down in Las Vegas, Biggie was murdered in Los Angeles. By the time Biggie was killed, he had become the face of East Coast hip-hop. He wasn't just a rapper. He was the engine behind Bad Boy Records. And behind that engine was Diddy, building his empire with Biggie at the center. They were everywhere together, music videos, award shows, exclusive parties, but behind the scenes, things were getting darker. Tension was high after 2PAC's death. People were still pointing fingers. Some believed Biggie had something to do with it. Others thought he'd be the next target. So when he flew to Los Angeles for an industry event, many questioned why. He was in enemy territory. Even Biggie reportedly felt uneasy about being there. That night, he left an after-party hosted by VIBE magazine. He was in an SUV, part of a small convoy. Diddy was also there, but in a different car ahead of Biggie's. It was just past midnight when a dark Chevy Impala pulled up next to Biggie's vehicle at a red light. A gunman opened fire. Biggie was hit and later pronounced dead at the hospital. No arrests, no answers, just like with 2PAC.
My car was in front, Biggie was in the middle, and then another security vehicle was behind, which had the off-duty officers in. And we left out of the driveway of the parking lot, and we made a right. And as we made the right, we were just driving, and vehicles were one behind each other. And I was looking straight ahead, basically, and I just heard shots ring out. And then I heard somebody say Biggie's car had got shot at. And so, like, while my car was moving, I had just opened the door, and the driver, he stopped, and I had jumped out, and I had ran to the car. And I had immediately did that because I knew his leg was broke, so I know there's no way he could have made it out of the car. And then when I went there, I opened up the door, and he was hunched over, and was trying to talk to him and trying to move him over. And I was trying to tell somebody to call 911, but I just told one of the drivers of security to just jump in the car, just take me to the nearest hospital, please.
That's bad. No Diddy.
But what raised eyebrows wasn't just the murder, it was the details around it. Why was Biggie even in LA, especially after everything that had happened? Why didn't someone stop it? And why did it feel like security was unusually relaxed that night? That's where things started pointing back to Diddy. Not just because he was Biggie's mentor, but because of the decisions being made around him. Who arranged the trip? Who was in charge of security? And why did Diddy, always so close to Biggie, leave in a separate vehicle ahead of him? Then came more questions, and whispers from behind the scenes. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, eventually broke his silence. He claimed things didn't feel right that night. He spoke about how security plans were changed, how there were warnings, and how certain people didn't seem concerned when they should have been. He didn't say Diddy ordered anything, but he painted a picture of carelessness at best, and something darker at worst. And the things he shared over the years have added layers to a case that already felt full of missing pieces.
I said, yo, Puff, I got some intel, bro. I got some intel that people gonna come and try to kill us. He said, Gene, I don't wanna hear that shit. F what you mean you don't wanna hear that shit? He said, yo, Gene, you ain't gotta go if you don't wanna go. You know what I'm saying? We right there, Big is right here. Me and Paul is at his car. Yo, y'all follow us. I got my gun out. Puff said, yo, Gene, get in this car. We don't need that. How the F you gonna tell me how to do my job? Get in here or you ain't gonna work another day for Bad Boy. So then I gets in the car. I said, yo, Kenny, run the next 3 lights, Kenny. He said, why? I said, Kenny, let me drive then. If you ain't gonna run the next 3 lights, let me drive, Kenny. It was a flashing red light. We didn't stop like that. We went across the light. Tone, who's behind me, says, yo, Big them ain't coming across the light. Yo, somebody pointing a gun at Big. We hear something say, pop, pop. you doing, Kenny? He say, they say somebody shoot. Yeah, motherfucker, they shooting that big.
He said Biggie didn't have to die, and that certain people knew more than they let on. And just like with 2PAC, that made people talk. How is it that the man closest to both fallen rappers ended up gaining the most after their deaths? Why did the investigations stall? Why did witnesses go quiet? Now, Katt Williams didn't stay silent about Biggie either. In one of his more revealing moments, he pointed out how Biggie's death, like 2Pac's, was blamed on no one. No suspects, no names. Just another mysterious shooting. But Katt wasn't buying it. He called out how both murders had the same pattern. A superstar dies, the industry pretends it's a mystery, and the people in power only rise higher. He hinted that these deaths weren't accidents or street violence. They were cleanups, pre-planned, protected, and hidden behind fake investigations.
When these rappers get killed, not incidental. Somebody made $100 million and now don't have to talk to that artist or none of their crew, don't have to validate none of their contracts. Now only got to deal with the mama, only got to see her once a year, and it's over. And the money goes up and up and up. So they killed this $20 million guy, but they reaped $60 million in benefits.
To Katt, this wasn't about East versus West. It was about control, about money, about silencing artists who got too big, too aware, and too dangerous to the system that made them. Not only were 2Pac and Biggie surrounded by whispers of Diddy's involvement, but over the years, several other deaths, disappearances, and violent incidents have sprung up around his orbit. If we go back to 1995, then we have the murder of Jake Robles, a name that doesn't get brought up often, but one that marked the beginning of something much darker in the industry. Jake wasn't just any street figure. He was closely tied to Suge Knight and Death Row Records, someone with influence, presence, and a reputation that demanded respect. But on that night in Atlanta, everything changed. Jake was out at a nightclub, a place where music, money, and ego often collided. That night, there was tension, an altercation that, according to whispers ever since, involved members of Bad Boy's crew. It wasn't long before gunfire erupted outside. Jake Robles was shot and later died from his injuries. And just like that, the energy in the industry shifted. What raised eyebrows wasn't just who Jake was, it was who he might have clashed with that night. Rumors spread quickly that the shooter was connected to Diddy's circle. Some even claimed Diddy himself was there or nearby. But the case was never pushed. H. The investigation went quite fast, and the man suspected of pulling the trigger? He didn't live long enough to speak. Killed shortly after, like his death tied off the loose ends. No arrest, no answers, no justice. For many who were watching closely, Jake's murder didn't feel isolated. It felt like the first domino, a hit that warned the rest of the industry that something more dangerous was brewing beneath the surface. Then came Anthony Wolf Jones, a name that carried weight not just on the streets but inside Diddy's own circle. Wolf wasn't just a bodyguard, he was a fixer, an enforcer, and for years, Diddy's most trusted muscle. If something went down, Wolf was there. If someone needed to be silenced, moved, or watched, Wolf handled it. He was loyal, and more importantly, he knew everything. But loyalty in that world only lasts as long as silence does. By 2003, something had changed. Whispers started swirling that Wolf and Diddy weren't as close as they used to be. Some said Wolf was stepping out on his own, maybe starting to talk, maybe becoming a liability. And in that world, that's dangerous, deadly even. Then it happened. Outside a nightclub in Atlanta, again, Atlanta, Wolf was shot multiple times in a supposed shootout. Officially, it was labeled a dispute. But many who saw the scene said it didn't look like some random street beef. It looked like a hit. Clean. Director. No mistakes. The kind of shooting that felt planned, not panicked. And once again, the outcome was the same. No real investigation, no real coverage. Diddy made no public waves. He kept moving, climbing, expanding. Wolf, the man who had been right by his side through the most turbulent years of his career, was gone without so much as a ripple. People close to the story still say Wolf knew too much. Maybe he was ready to talk, that he had stories that couldn't be allowed to surface. And then there's the tragedy that most people have never even heard of. The 1991 City College stampede in New York. It didn't involve gunfire. It didn't look like a hit. But 9 people still ended up dead, and once again, Diddy's name was tied to it. Back then, Diddy was just starting to rise in the music world. He organized a celebrity basketball game meant to draw a massive crowd. Stars, fans, energy, excitement. But what was meant to be a fun night quickly turned into horror. The venue was overpacked. Security was chaotic. As more people pushed to get inside, panic broke out. The exits became bottlenecks. People were crushed in the stampede. 9 lives were lost in minutes. Dozens more were injured. It was one of the deadliest crowd disasters in the city's history. And yet, almost no one talks about it. Now, after decades of silence, secrets, and strange disappearances, it seems the walls are finally closing in on Sean Diddy Combs. What was once whispered behind closed doors is now center stage in a courtroom, with federal prosecutors laying out charges that read like the script of a criminal empire, not a music mogul's biography. In 2024, Diddy was officially indicted on serious federal charges: racketeering, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transporting individuals across state lines for prostitution. These aren't petty allegations. These are the kinds of charges that carry decades behind bars, and in some cases, life. The indictment accuses Diddy of running a calculated operation between 2004 and 2024, not just as an individual, but as the leader of a larger network. A so-called enterprise that allegedly used drugs, threats, and violence to trap victims who were allegedly coerced into explicit acts, filmed without consent, and controlled through fear and manipulation. It said these acts weren't random or impulsive. They were planned, repeated, packaged as part of what insiders called freak-offs. Private, secret events filled with celebrities, models, influencers, and cameras. The trial kicked off in mid-2025 in a federal court in Manhattan. The jury has heard from women who say Diddy drugged them, isolated them, and used his power to exploit them. Some of them were in relationships with him. Some worked for him. All of them, according to the prosecution, were controlled by a man who believed he was untouchable. And for a long time, he was. But not anymore. Graphic footage, recovered texts, hotel records, and detailed witness accounts are being used to paint a picture of what was happening behind closed doors. One of the key testimonies came from Diddy's former girlfriend, Cassie, whose civil lawsuit helped trigger the initial federal investigation. Her claims, once seen as part of a private dispute, are now backed by other accusers and hard evidence. Another woman, referred to in court only as Jane, gave chilling testimony describing threats, coercion, and secret recordings. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team is arguing that all encounters were consensual. They claim his lifestyle was unconventional, but not criminal. They've positioned him as a man under attack by opportunists and framed the case as a misunderstanding, not a criminal conspiracy. But the evidence is piling up. And this time, Diddy isn't walking away untouched. He's in custody. No bail, no red carpets, no studio distractions. If convicted, Diddy could spend the rest of his life behind bars. For someone once seen as untouchable in the industry, the fall is massive. The trial is still underway and the world is watching, not just to see if he's guilty, but to see whether decades of power, silence, and alleged abuse will finally be held accountable. Outro. That's it for this one. If you made it this far, you already know. This isn't just drama, it's deeper than that. So don't miss what's coming next. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when we drop the next bombshell. Drop a comment below. Do you think Katt is exposing the truth, or is it all just conspiracy? Either way, stay locked in, because this story is far from over.